Hello, Noble Knitter. It's Nancy Queen. And you know, I've been knitting a long time, but there is one knitting book that I just can't live without. It's my favorite book. I've owned it. It's been out almost 20 years, and I've owned it almost that entire time. And I seem to go to it again and again. So let's dive right in and see what the book is. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell to get notified every time I post. Okay, this is the book that I cannot live without. It is The Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns by Ann Budd. I go to this book again and again and again, and I don't know if you can see my elastic. There's an elastic closure. It's all worn out and stretched out. I have notes in this that's got a pocket in the back, and mine is filled with notes and patterns and index cards so that I can refer back to it. There have been times where I've had a lot of Post-its in here. But what I love about this book is that it's a basic go-to, not only as like it has a lot of perfect basic patterns in it, but it's a good reference guide. It includes basic patterns for mittens, gloves, hats, tams, scarves, socks, vests, and sweaters. So that's pretty much covers the gambit of basic patterns. There's a whole introductory section to tell you how to use it. It will tell you exactly what you need to do for any weight yarn that you have. As you can see here, here's the mittens. You can see they're done in different weights and different sizes. They have from children to adult, but then you can do it in a fingering, you could do it in a bulky, you could do it in a worsted weight. It's all in there. And it has these charts. So here's one, here's what a chart looks like. Oh, I've got more papers falling out here. So what you do is you find your size. So down here is a size, and you find the size, and then you follow it throughout the chart. You're also going to find your gauge. So you find your size and then what the gauge of the yarn is. So let me just grab a skein of yarn to help. Okay, let's take a look at this sock section, okay? So they show you can make socks using a multiple weight yarn, any type of weight yarn, and any gauge. So if we turn the page, it will give us an estimate of how much yarn we're going to need. Then it's going to give us the size that we want to make and the finished foot circumference that you could measure to make sure you're getting the right size. Then what it does is it has you look up the gauge. So you can make socks in anywhere from a 5 to a 9 stitches per inch gauge. So I grabbed 2 yarns here. This one is Knit Picks Stroll. It's a fingering weight yarn. The labels come apart here. So this gets 7 to 8 stitches on a 1 to 3 needle. So I can just go with 7 or 8. I'd probably work up a gauge swatch to see how I like this, whether I like knitting it on a 7 or 8 for a pair of socks. Usually a little tighter is better for socks. So in this case, let's say I'm going to go with a gauge of 8 stitches per inch. And then let's say I want to knit another pair, and this is Malabrigo Arroyo yarn, and it's a DK to worsted weight yarn, and its gauge is 20 to 22 stitches. So if I went with that, I would go here with 5 or 6 stitches, and then in the fingering weight stroll, I would do 7 to 8 stitches. Then what you do is you find the size on this chart, and you can highlight it or write it down on a piece of paper, and then you just follow the chart all the way through, and it tells you what to do the entire time. If you follow your gauge is found over here, and then you just follow along to where you are in the chart based on your size. And it allows you to make all these different projects. It also gives lots of really helpful tips, like a suggestion like to give your socks heels and toes longer sock life, work a strand of thread along with the yarn while working the heel flap, turning the heel, and the toe shaping. So that's a great tip. It's got a lot of really helpful tips like that. And then it gives you a schematic with the measurements, And if that's not enough, it gives you ways to personalize your sock. So in this case, you could do changes to the sock legs, single ribbed, double ribbed, a rolled edge, or a picot edge. And it goes this book continues on the same way for vests, sweaters, cardigans. You can do either one. And then again, it gives you lots of suggestions for how to customize your project. Even in the hats, I'm going to go back to the hats for a second. So it's not just plain beanie hats, it also has tams. Here's some examples of the hats. But if you notice here, you have a ribbed hem, a rolled hem. This is a turned hem, and this looks like kind of a picot hem. So you have lots of different options there as well. It shows you here how to adjust all of those. And in the pattern itself, it will give you how many stitches you need to work, how far you need to work it for those types of adjustments. And then when you get to the top, it gives you all these different ways to adjust it. You could do it with a pom-pom, a tassel, a bauble, an I-cord top knot, corkscrew fringe, or crochet loop. So this book, like I said, is invaluable to me. I absolutely love it. There's also a glossary, which is really helpful. If you forget how to do a technique, it's in here. They've got pages and pages of information, and found another paper, something that I was working on. And then there's also the abbreviations, so that if you forget a term, you can find it here in the back. It also provides some yarn sources, and there's a page for measurements and other important details, and another note page, and of course this well-used pocket in the back. So I'm going to provide a link to this book in the description below. In addition, Anne also created a Knitter's Handy Book of Sweaters, which has more sweater options than what is in here. So I'll provide a link to that as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one.